Hello. Workshop 8, using L1 in class. L1 means first language, student's mother tongue. So, the warmer for this workshop is what we call an onion ring or a circle discussion. And for this, you need to arrange participants in 2 circles. One circle and then another one on the outside. People on the inside facing outwards, people on the outside facing inwards so that they can see each other. Write a question on the board, write the first question on the board and ask the participants to discuss with the person standing opposite them. When you feel they have discussed enough, write the second question on the board and ask the participants to move around. So those on the outside need to move one person so that they have a new partner. They're talking to a new person. So every person on the outside moves and they're talking to the next person. And they discuss the next question, etc., etc. So the people on the outside move around every time there's a new question. Stage 2 is the session overview. Quite simply explain the aims of this session to participants. And then stage 3 is the content of this workshop, and that is the use of English and mother tongue in the classroom. So put the participants in groups and get them to brainstorm the advantages of using English on the left column and the advantages of using the mother tongue in the right column. Stage 4 is looking at the language for changing between English and mother tongue in class. So you can see in the participants' book there are sentences and the words are in the wrong order. So there are 7 sentences and individually the participants should reorder these sentences so that they're in the correct order. And they can check their answers with their partner before perhaps you'd like to check them as a class very quickly. And then in the next table, at the top of the table, you can see the function, and you're going to ask the participants to put the phrase, match the phrase to the function. So asking learners to speak in English, there are 3 phrases. I'd like you to speak in English, tell me in English, try to say it in English. So there should be 3 answers there. So next is stage 5, and this is listening. Now this is a reordering, and what the participants can see in their book are 5 screenshots, so pictures of a computer screen. And these show the order that of the stages of doing an internet search. So in order to search on the internet, you need to open your web browser, in this case Google Chrome, and then open the page, Google, and then type the phrase that you're looking for, learn English, and then enter to get the results, and then choose the result and open the web page. In this case, it's the British Council's Learn English page. So the participants need to order the screenshots. Then they will listen and check their answers. And then they can check in pairs, check their answers in pairs. Then before they listen again, tell them that their task is to listen for the expressions that they heard in 4B. So these expressions that they put into the table in exercise 4B, they're going to be listening for those expressions when they listen a second time. Stage 6, the practice stage. They're going to practice using these expressions in groups, doing role plays. There are 3 situations there, A, B, and C. And in groups, they will take it in turns to play the role of the teacher. Stage 7, helping learners to use English. Now for this, you're going to need to explain the technique of recasting. And this is when a learner says something in their mother tongue, or they say it in English but with lots of errors, and the teacher reformulates or says what the learner wanted to say in English or in better English. So if a learner says something in their mother tongue, the teacher listens and then says, ah, you mean, and then says it in English. So explain what recasting is, and then play the recording, and the participants listen and try to note down 2 examples of recasting. When that's done, the participants individually look at the table. On the left, in the left column, you can see what a learner says in their first language. So you have to imagine that these 9 phrases in the left column are in the first language. And then on the right side of the table, in the right column, you can see the teacher's response. And the participants should match the learner, what the learner says, to the teacher's response. Remember, on the left-hand column, these are supposed to be in their first language. They're written in English here, but in the example, you have to imagine that they're in first language. Stage 8, teaching the meaning of vocabulary. So first of all, ask the participants what techniques they know for explaining the meaning of unknown words without simply giving a translation in L1. So some of those techniques could be to show a picture of the target vocabulary. It could be to use an English to English dictionary and get the participants, the students, to look up the word. It could be using gestures to show the word listen, for example. So there are many techniques for avoiding having to use first language. So elicit some of these techniques from the participants. When you've done that, ask them in pairs to look at this short paragraph about brown bears. And their task is that they need to identify what language the students need to understand and probably don't know in order to understand this text. So participants need to decide which words or phrases they would need to pre-teach before students read the text. So they do that in pairs, and then move on to B, exercise B. Here you have some words on the left, and on the right you have different ways of explaining the meaning. So there are pictures, and there is a definition from a dictionary, and then there are some explanations, and there's one example of a gesture, and there's another one where the teacher gives the antonym or the opposite. So obviously bear, you match that to the picture of a bear. Mountain, again, you match that to the picture of the mountain. Meadow, the picture of the flowers on the field. Heartbeat is the gesture. The teacher does this to explain. Once they've done that and check their answers in pairs, get them into groups to discuss the questions. What are the different ways of explaining meaning? What are the easiest ways to understand? Which are more difficult? And which would you use in your class? Finally, they're going to discuss in pairs the worries in the left column that teachers might have about using English in class, and they're going to think of ideas for advice for worried teachers. So here you have 5 examples of things that teachers might worry about, and there is space for the participants to write some more concerns, and then in pairs in the right column they should think of some advice that they could give to the teachers who have those concerns. Finally, section 10, as usual, give participants a few minutes to write down any useful language, phrases, vocabulary that has come from this workshop, and also to decide on a couple of action points, things that they would like to do in their own teaching. And that's it.